This module introduces a case of successful dispute resolution when siting of high-voltage transmission towers in South Korea. This case is about an experiment of a public corporation to make a controversial decision through a collaborative governance process. The government needs to build high-voltage transmission towers to deliver electricity from the power plants through power lines to cities and factories. However, the residents of the area where the power lines pass and high-voltage transmission towers are built are almost always against such a plan due to potential risks and harms associated with a transmission tower, including decreased real estate prices, public health concerns about electromagnetic waves, and unsavory appearance of the towers. Between 2010 and 2015, a total of 533 disputes have occurred in the process of siting high-voltage transmission towers in Korea. Opponents refused the plan by demanding change of the location, compensation for potential damages, and burial of the lines underground. Among the dispute cases on high-voltage transmission towers in Korea between 2006 and 2009, 20% of the disputes happened during the site selection process. However, 80% of the disputes occurred after the government approved the plan, lands were expropriated, and construction of the towers began. In other words, in 80% of the cases, people did not know the plan until the government approved, land was appropriated, or construction began to build towers. In such cases, disputes became much more serious and difficult to be resolved since the government already approved the plan and people perceived the process unfair. Korea Electric Power Corporation, also called as KEPCO, as a public corporation to implement projects to build high-voltage transmission towers, suffered a lot from so many prolonged disputes and realized a huge cost from delayed project. Previously, sites for towers and power lines were determined by KEPCO's experts and technicians mainly based on technical and economic criteria, and people had difficulty in getting information about the project in advance or in due courses. Therefore, KEPCO decided to carry out an experiment in 2009 where all relevant stakeholders were invited to participate in the process from the early stages of the project. This experiment aims ultimately at managing the project efficiently by preventing unnecessary disputes. In the participatory experiment, KEPCO asked stakeholders to determine the sites for towers for themselves and just provided technical support for them.
KEPCO selected an ongoing project in Chungcheong Province to conduct experiment for collaborative governance procedure. To meet the rapidly rising energy demands for the newly established Sejong Administrative City and Chungcheong Province, a 345 kilovolt power transmission line had to be extended from Chungwon-gun in North Chungcheong Province for a total length of 13.2 kilometers. As the first step for the experiment, KEPCO established a site selection committee of 17 representatives from communities, local government, KEPCO, civil society, and conflict resolution experts, and held the first meeting in September 2010. A site selection committee determined a comprehensive site selection criteria that include environmental, social, cultural, economic, and safety factors. Then, based on extensive surveys to evaluate potential lines with selected criteria, they identified 3 potential power transmission lines within the project area in October 2010. 1 month later, all the members of the Site Selection Committee visited the areas that covered the 3 potential lines and determined the optimal power line. During the process, members of the Siting Selection Committee could view 3-dimensional simulated outlook around the optimal power line produced by state-of-the-art computer graphic technology using satellite images. With the Site Selection Committee's decision on the optimal power line, KEPCO held public hearings in all the towns in the area where proposed power line would pass. The committee members briefed their decisions for the community members and heard their concerns about potential risks and harms. After having a few consultation sessions with the residents, the committee made the final decision on the power line and the sites for transmission towers at the committee meeting in February 2011. It took 5 months for the Site Selection Committee to finalize site selection, and that was 6 months shorter than the time spent in ordinary decision-making processes that usually involve disputes with residents. Also, the experiment was so successful as KEPCO could implement the project and construct high-voltage transmission towers without disputes down the road and reduce the total construction time that otherwise would have been delayed due to serious disputes with residents.
Now let's review what we have learned in the case of KEPCO's successful participatory experiment. First, KEPCO opened up the siting process from the beginning and engaged all relevant stakeholders in participatory processes. That approach was totally different from its conventional decision-making model, so-called decide, announce, and defend. Second, KEPCO empowered the stakeholders in the site selection committee by devolving their decision-making power into the participants. Third, KEPCO shared the decision-making processes with the public in transparent manners and held public hearings in all the towns. Fourth, KEPCO provided useful technologies and expertise for participants. As a conclusion, KEPCO decided to go slow from the beginning by involving stakeholders, but they could go fast later without any unnecessary dispute.